We'll call to order the meeting of the Common Council. It's Monday, April 27th, 2020. It's 6 p.m. Actually, it's 6:02 p.m. Val, please call roll.
Barnett.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
Mikulowski.
Here.
Kelly.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Holt.
Here.
Daniel.
Here.
Rossing.
Here.
Mayor Frederickson.
Here. All please stand. Also, we would like to take a moment and have a moment of silence for the people affected by the COVID virus and our pandemic that we have going on, both our frontline responders, our police force, our paramedics, and the hospital staff that's in the front line. Please observe that moment of silence with me. We want to thank you all for what you do. Public comments received by the mayor, city clerk's office, or council members. On this, it's not in front of you, but it came from 2-3 different places. One is there is a issue of possibly deferring our room tax to a later time so that they can use the capital. At this point, they'd still have to pay the room tax, but if not, that has been brought up in question, and other municipalities have done it. So just give it some thought, and it'll be on the next agenda. But it was a request that came through two different ways as far as that goes. Next, also, I received a letter today from Rob Swearingen. He's our state representative, the 34th Assembly District. Dear Mayor Frederickson, the people of the Northwoods have shown a tremendous willingness to sacrifice during this difficult period, and I believe we can now begin to mitigate some of the economic damage being done to our region. I support the City of Rhinelander's potential efforts to slowly and purposefully begin reopening parts of the community. I believe in the Northwoods we can protect our loved ones and implement a common sense plan to gradually open up our economy while taking proper precautions to protect the public. I look forward to working with the City of Rhinelander, the Oneida County Board, the Oneida County Health Department, the Oneida County Economic Development Corporation as we begin to emerge from this unprecedented time. Sincerely, Rob Swearingen. Under that petition is the idea that, one, I would like you to reach out to your constituents in the next week or so. If they could reach out to their district alderpersons, if they're watching this live streaming and otherwise, and with a press release we'll ask for it, as far as what their feelings are towards a safe opening. What does that look like from the people of Rhinelander? One of the things we moved forward with in the last 2 years is definitely government that receives the public opinion and takes it to heart and moves things forward. So I'm just trying to enhance that that opportunity as we look at these times and these decisions, because they are unprecedented. These are unprecedented times, and we need to be able to move forward. So anybody else receive any communications? Tom.
I might add that the county has formed an ad hoc committee to discuss reopening, what areas we can reopen, what we can do safely, what is not safe just yet. And as chairman of the Board of Health, I have been assigned to that committee. So, and we're meeting later in the week, but I will keep the council tuned into what we're doing at that committee level. So
great. If you wanted to give any correspondence that you receive, or to Val to get out to everybody also, it just allows. But once again, I'd like to encourage our constituents, the people of Rhinelander, to reach out to their alderperson with the way they see fit, and it'll be taken into consideration as we move forward. I appreciate that. All right, under mayor's comments.
No, I had one
Oh, I'm
email
sorry.
that was sent to me. I don't know exactly how to say his last name, Sean Flugard, I'm thinking. He lives on Timber Heights Drive. He sent an email to me saying our Timber Heights Drive neighborhood road repair costs have been approved and integrated into the fiscal year 2020 budget. Do you have any timeline for that repair work? Are we wondering if the project will be completed at the same time as Timber Drive? So, just
Okay.
thought I'd mention that.
And I would encourage you also that any correspondence you have like that, you can also turn to the department head, turn it into them. That one, they have mail slots downstairs. Otherwise, you can give it to Val, which I'm sure Val will gladly forward on.
Oh.
That allows Dan to respond to that, Dan Heckler.
Okay.
All right. Mayor's comments, if there was no more. Update on the Citizens Ethics Committee Board. This was brought before me as something to take care of. One, I went to interview the Ethics Board about the time the city shut down. So it seemed somewhat unethical to ask them to come in for an interview. Number two, as we move forward, and you'll see later in your packet, we're moving forward with our procedures and policy manual and discussing it, so we as a council understand what's expected of us before it ever has to go to an ethics board. And a mutual understanding, if somebody out there is watching and, is one of the participants that put in their application or their letter of interest for that ethics board, they can see the standards we're supposed to hold up. So that's the reason that's on delay right now, as far as that goes, is it wouldn't have function if we didn't know how to use them. So that's where that is. Announcement of the opening of the parks and dog parks, subject to reasonable restrictions in line with governmental orders. On page 5 of your packet was the media release that was sent out. Reopening of Rhinelander City Dog Park to the public. As a result of the recent changes in Governor Evers' latest COVID-19 stay-at-home order, Oneida County Health Department has approved the opening of the Rhinelander Dog Park with limitations. The reopening will have the following guidelines. 1, everyone must maintain the 6 feet social distancing standard. Number 2, appropriate masking is required to prevent potential spread of the virus. 3, a 10-person limit will be imposed within the fenced area. Do not enter the fenced area of the dog park if your presence will result in the limitation being exceeded. Be mindful of others who may be waiting to use the park. That is the only way this will work. Please understand that we are doing this in an effort to cooperate with our citizens, but this reopening may be revoked if these guidelines are ignored or if we feel there is sufficient evidence to warrant complete closure again. Our number one priority is to ensure the safe, healthy environment for our citizens and community. Jeremy Belio sent that out. So I wanted to read that online too so people can hear it because they might not receive it when it is a press release otherwise. C, proclamation honoring the 4 retiring council members and their years of dedicated service to the city of Rhinelander. I'm not going to read over all 4, but it has to do with their individual service, how many years, and some of the different places they've served. It's a proclamation honoring Steve, Lee, George, and Dawn for their service as a Rhinelander City Council person. So these they've been signed by myself and the newly appointed council president. They'll get the seal of the city, they'll get laminated, and we'll send them out all along with their plaques to make sure that they get them. We would like them to been here tonight, but obviously that's a limitation that we can't have, so. But anyway, I'd like to thank them, and actually, if you want to applaud, that'd be great about now. All right, announcement of appointments to the city committees and boards. The tree board, I'm going to appoint Bruce Carlson, Leo Yonker, Christy Schneider, Keith McCaffrey, Pat Laporte, Tom Giroux, and Eileen Daniel. To the Board of Review, I already appointed Steve Sauer as a citizen last meeting. Eileen Daniel is going to serve as an alderperson, and Gerald Anderson is going to serve as an alderperson. Downtown Rhinelander, Inc., Tom Barnett will serve as our representative. The parking utility, Tom Barnett and Gerald Anderson will serve in that capacity. I've explained to both of them when we talked that this wasn't something that was actually functioning as a sort right now, but may come into necessity. Planning Commission. Eileen Daniel is also serving on the Planning Commission as our alderperson. Historic Preservation. Gerald Anderson will chair it, and David Holt will be a citizen, or actually my mayoral appointment. Pioneer Park, the Joint Library District Board was on the list, but that was also appointed last time, which is Tom Kelly, and then Brett Childs is a citizen that'll be. Pioneer Park Historical Museum Complex Advisory Committee. David Holt and Carrie Michalowski will be representing the city on that. Those are the only appointments at this time. There'll be more possibly to come as we move on. If you have a problem with any of these appointments, we can also do reappointments. Later in the business will be the approval of these, so that's just my announcement at this point, and it's under the consent. Reports from departments. Clerk's Department. Anything to add, Val?
Yes, I actually do have a couple of things to add. The first one is we are still getting a lot of absentee ballots in for this election. We are well over 1,100 right now. We've got about between 1,300 and 1,400 for the last election. So we still have some time. People are still sending in their requests. The second thing is that anyone who has been appointed to the Board of Review, please know that the Board of Review is planning to meet on May 4th. It is a 2-hour required by law meeting, whether we have anyone there to hear or not. Anybody that is going to do that, please make sure you are available. Training is also available, and we will take care of that at a future time. We're running a little short. We do have some people that are trained, and we only need one, but there's a couple of us that still have our certifications. So we will go with that, and if you have any questions, please get to me on that. Thank you.
Val, real quick, can you explain how many people need to be trained, therefore how many we have, and therefore the necessity of when new members would need to be retrained?
Yes, you have to be trained before the Board of Review meets every 2 years. I'm still on. Mary Stoll actually is also certified. I believe Steve Sauer is certified. I think he trained with us or around the same time. I think that's about it for right now. So what you have to do is go through a class, basically. You can do that online. Normally, we have a clerk in the area from Anago who's a trainer, and she would come up and do the clerks, the District 8 training, and it was also available to anybody who would like to come in and take that training. But we don't have that available this year because of COVID-19. So it would probably have to be online through the UW extension, and I can get information on that. And then once you certify, then you're good to go for a couple of years. So it would be nice to have more than one person or two people. Yes, I'm sorry.
Eileen, sorry.
I'm just wondering if I need to be certified before the May 4th meeting.
No, we have enough people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're good.
Gerald? Go ahead, speak into the mic. It just helps.
In the report, it said you can't keep up with the election stuff and still get the rest of your work done. I was just wondering what is not being done then, and how can that be resolved?
Well, because of the large volume of election duties, the absentee ballots and trying to process and get things ready for elections and having one election right after the other this year, we have our normal duties in our office. We have our licensing, we have all of the collections that we do. We have to do water utilities. We're trying to get all of our normal duties done, but when we get a flat from the post office per day of absentee ballots, and then there's another 40 or so to go out that night, it's all hand. I mean, you have to do them by hand. And so then you have to keep up on things. You have to answer questions. People are calling. Can they come in? We have to schedule times for people to come and absentee vote. It all takes up time. There's all of the filing and things that we can't even touch right now. because it's constant. It's busy. And then, of course, we've had extra meetings and we've got all of this going on. So it's really difficult with the two people. We're shorthanded anyway. We are short at City Hall. So if we had somebody that could help us, which we normally did, and for tax collection and various other duties too, we don't have that. And so we're trying to get the work done. And it's hard. We keep falling further and further behind, especially with filing. So I do have some election ladies that have been coming in and helping, and they've been a godsend. They're doing that work that I just can't possibly get to.
Well, it seems like it's going to come up again in August with
Yeah, it
the
is.
tax collections in July.
Oh, yeah, the county does the tax collection in July, so we're good. That will save us. But then we start preparing right away in November, if not October, for the following tax year, because we have to have the bills out the beginning of December. So there's never a let up, and then we're going to have all of the summer things that are going on, the park reservations, and we've got special events, and if, of course, we're allowed to do those.
This year, for the election being a little bit different, we encourage you to start bringing in the same poll workers that would work the polls and be busy in different locations to come in and start working on those same envelopes and getting them out. Then once again, with it being a next election, you don't know how far that's going to be a necessity until then. But as you notice, meeting minutes have been put to the backside of the burner. At the same time, they're still available to anybody. One, it's been live streaming. Anybody can see them at any point. You can go look them up. But they'll be taken care of, and they'll be caught up at some point. Anything else, Val? Tom?
I'm just wondering, is there any possibility of getting them office help, like through one of the temp services here in town?
One of the things that and granted, I'll let her speak to that
Sure.
at some point. We had a part-time employee before that did do this fill-in, and no longer available? Right, no longer available.
No.
We looked at also the summer internships that come out of like UW-Madison, and a lot of times what they want is experience in government or whatever. Well, that got shut down too.
Oh, yeah.
So when you start taking away the avenues of what it looked like, then the frustration of training somebody when you're trying to catch up
That's a good point.
is a whole different situation. I know that at the hospital, we're trying
Yeah,
to train people to do our jobs. It only makes us slower at doing our own jobs. So it's that level of just floating, getting to where you need to. But yeah, we are examining some of those things. Some work, some don't. So,
Got it.
all right. Engineering, Mark is outside the room. He's going to step in and give a little update. I'm going to step out of the room so we meet the quota numbers, but.
You got to hold it down for a second.
It's green. Can you guys hear me okay? There we go. I build roads. I don't work with this kind of stuff, so bear with me. Anyway, I want to take this opportunity and with new council members in, I just want to introduce myself, introduce Town and Country, and kind of give you guys an update on what's going on in the Stevens Street project and an idea of what to expect from us as this project goes on. So real quick history on Town and Country. We've been working in the city of Rhinelander since 1984. We started as a sub for Genesat and Associates, who at that time did the engineering for the city. In 1989, we ended up working directly with the city, and Genesat started transitioning out of the engineering, and now they're land surveying firm. We've continued working with Genesat through the years and on all the projects that we do for the city. They do our topo surveys and our construction staking, so we've maintained that relationship through the years. In 2014, we opened up a Rhinelander office. I'm the manager of that office, and I've been here since we created that. In the time that Town and Country has been in Rhinelander, since 1989 full-time, we have assisted the city in designing construction of 2 water towers, 2 wells, the wastewater treatment plant, the downtown revitalization down the Stevens Street project, and a ton of little projects in between there. Just in the past 10 years, of those projects, some of the major projects, the wastewater treatment plant, the downtown, including Stevens Street and some other projects associated with wastewater treatment plant. We helped the city secure 40% of those funds in grants and about 55% in low-interest loans. In real money, that comes to about $24 million in grants in the last 10 years on these projects. So the city has historically had very good luck getting these grants and low-interest loans for these larger projects that come to the city. Stevens Street project. So I know a lot of the faces that I'm seeing here, new council members, have also been in the audience when I've given updates on the Stevens Street project. And I try to maybe give you a little more detail and open it up for questions if you have any for me. Stevens Street project was bid as a 3-year project. That's 2 years of utility work. Last year we saw sewer, water, storm sewer, and full road reconstruction, sidewalk to sidewalk from Frederick Street to Dwight. That included 1.2 miles of all new utilities. We upsized the sewer and water. We deepened the sewer a little bit to extend and expand for future service areas down the road. That included 2 new sets of streetlights, Timber and Dwight as well. At the end of last year, we ran into a little cold stretch. Not all the work was completed. Contractor is going to be completing that work in May and into June. As a matter of fact, tomorrow with city staff, the contractors and our staff are going to be walking the project from Frederick to Dwight, identifying anything that was not complete or anything that was deficient that the contractor will need to repair. That list goes to the contractor, and they're going to start working on that. Contractor anticipates early May. Their concrete contractor will be finishing up all that concrete work, replacing anything that needs to be replaced. And by mid to late June, they'll have the final lift of asphalt on, striped, and done for that first phase. The second phase started late March. Contractor got a very early start on that. They were anticipating that first week in April just to be on site. With the good weather we got this spring, they were able to get a roll on it. We have the city's lucky in the contractors that are running this project. You have a local contractor in Musson, and A1 Excavating is doing a fantastic job with utility work. They have thrown 4 crews at this job. If you drive out on Stevens Street, it's very hectic. A lot of equipment out there. Well, the reason for that is A1 is throwing everything in the kitchen sink at it, and they're trying to wrap this up quickly. So they have 4 crews out there. Musson has a couple crews out there building road, putting in storm sewer pipe. Right now we have the sanitary sewer past Woodland, past Juniper, almost to Menominee. They anticipate mid-June they will be done with the deep sewer out to the bypass. By the end of June, hopefully all pipe work is done. If Hodeg Fest does continue, the plan is just to shut down construction. So during that time period, because Hodeg Fest is a huge economic incentive for the city, we're just going to shut it down, pave it with temporary asphalt, get the equipment off the site, and let the RVs come in and out of town. If the Hodeg Fest does not go on, we're just going to push on through, and that's an extra 14 days that the contractor could potentially get it done earlier. By the end of this year, contractually, the contractor will have all the underground utilities, the curb and gutter, a new bike path on the south side of Stevens Street from Dwight to the bypass. We are installing an 8-foot bike path, asphalt bike path. On the north side, we're getting a 5-foot concrete sidewalk. That will all be completed at the end of this year. Much like we did on the first phase, it's just going to be the bottom layer of asphalt. Next year, we'll come in, we'll raise all the structures, put the surface layer of asphalt on. By June 30th of next year, the whole project will be a wrap. So what you can expect from us during this project, this is aside from the wastewater treatment plant, this is the largest project that the city has undertaken. It's a $14.4 million construction effort. So there's a lot of paperwork that's involved in a $14.4 million project, particularly when we get grant money from a rural development. So the city's lucky enough to get almost $10 million worth of grant and low interest loans from rural development. And the bulk of that share is made up with other funding agencies. But there's a lot of money that is being funded for this project, so those funding agencies like to track this, which is very understandable. So as we go through it, at the end of each month, the contractor will request payment. Everything they've done for that month, we have what's called a bid tab. They go through and we keep track of every quantity, everything that they've done. They will submit that pay request at the end of the month at a designated time. They give that to Town and Country. We look through it, our staff, we have multiple staff out on the job site. At any one time, they'll catch 4 of us out there observing construction, making sure it's being built per plans and specs, per city standards. We are also tracking quantities. We track those along with the contractor, so when that pay request comes in, we're generally on the same page. But we'll verify all these quantities, make sure everything's right. If it is right, we will calculate that. We'll come up with a recommended amount that we will present to the council for recommendation for payment for the contractor for the work completed to date. What you'll always get, or also get, there's 2 other forms that you'll see along the way. The pay request handles everything that was bid per contract. This is what they get paid. Along the line, we're going to find things that were unknown to us. Great example, last year we had to replace 100 feet of sanitary sewer, existing sanitary sewer, because when it was originally installed, it had a big dip in it. So we were there, we extended construction out, repaired that, tied it in the new sanitary sewer, but that was not included in the pay request, in the initial bid items. So that we wrote up as a work change directive. That's something that you're going to see that we present to council. What the work change directive does is outline how much time and effort the contractor put into it and a cost. These work change directives are collected and they are put into what's called a change order. A change order is a change to the contract price. So if these work change directives, all told, come to an additional $10,000 in extra work, we will present it as such, a change order in the amount of $10,000. That change order will be added on that pay request, which we submit at the same time. And as a whole, those 3 documents will work together into a recommended payment that we will present to the council for approval. So that, in a nutshell, is how the Stevens Street project will progress. Items that we will present to you, and at all these meetings, I will certainly be here. I can answer any questions. Sometimes questions do come up about the validity of these additional costs or what's been completed to date, and I'm always happy to answer any questions. So if you have any questions for me, Tom?
Yeah, I just a curiosity question, really. I noticed that on Stevens Street, the nice sidewalks have been laid going up and down Stevens Street. There are still patches of walks going up to the houses that were ripped up. Is that part of that contractor fixing agenda there?
Yeah, that was more part of the cold weather, getting too cold. We're going to hold off until this spring.
Okay.
So you'll see a lot of those, where we have concrete from the sidewalk up to the house,
Right.
just missing patches. Yeah, see that concrete approaches some sidewalk and just little odds and ends of concrete
Right,
work.
so
needs to be done.
that'll be done with that.
That will all be taken care of.
The second part to the question is there's a lot of dirt. I've talked to a lot of my neighbors because I live on Stevens Street too. And there's a lot of dirt that was piled up in the front yard. Is that grass going to be replanted or is that up to the homeowner to?
Oh, no, that'll be done by the contractor.
That will be, okay.
Oh, yeah.
That-
So that'll all be groomed. Some of this stuff, and we've gotten, phone calls here and there. There's one that has a retaining wall that yet to be put in place. We're going to be finishing up that, just odds and ends things.
Okay.
We also encourage people to call us if they find anything wrong, things were different. I will go out there, or Frank Bry, who some of you have met, and you'll probably meet. He's our project engineer for the construction portion. He'll go out and meet with people, and if there's something that we need to address, we'll try to get those addressed.
Sounds good, thank you.
All right, thank you for your time.
Nice seeing you again.
All right, the rest of the reports are either in your packet and/or were not submitted. I will accept a motion to, for the,
I will make a motion to accept the reports as presented.
Barnett, second.
there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Reports are read into the record. There are no reports from boards, commissions, and committees at this time. Consent agenda. Just so you're aware, the information for 24 is on page 32 if you have any questions with that. Otherwise, I will accept the motion.
What about 25? Have we been given information on that?
Val, is that in the packet? The operator license?
The operator license that we do not put into the packets because there's personal information on there. That has been approved by the police department. Typically, that is how we do it and have for many, many years.
What you'll see even here in the future, later down, they'll talk about Zoom and our department heads, and we are lacking the department heads still. At that point, we would look at the chief and he would say, I approve, nothing there, or, whatever the case might be. Or-
It would not end up on the agenda unless it was on there because of a denial by the police department, and then that would show. But when it comes in here like this, it's already been approved by them.
Also, if you look at item number 28 on the agenda, it's moving us towards Val and Lloyd, the police chief, pretty much take care of this before it ever gets to us. The only time is when they reject it, which is also when we should step in. So it's moving towards an ordinance that allows them just to take care of it.
I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 24, 25, and 26.
Larson, second.
There's a motion and a second on the consent agenda items. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Consent agenda passes. Unfinished business. Discuss resolution 2019-50, rescinding the City of Rhinelander of Code of Ordinances 2.0104, 2.0105, 2.0110, 2.0111, 2.0165, 2.020212 C and D, 2.0203, 2.0204, and 2.0507.
I will make a motion to pass resolution 2019-50.
The resolution was already there. This is the discussion of whether or not we would extend it, keep it, and what it was, and I believe Steve Sauer made this resolution, and it said until the new council takes its seat, we would abolish the committees and the different forms of functions. That being the case, being brand new, I would accept a motion to table it for 2 months, or whatever you might want to do. But as the unfinished business came to us, it was until they were seated. Now, if they had an opinion on it already and wanted to vote, that's council's objective. My job is to bring it forth because here it is. We have a new council. No, that's okay. No problem.
Barnett, I'd like to make a motion to table it for 2 meetings.
A month?
A month?
Okay.
There you go. Table it for a month so that we have an opportunity to get our heads around it and really think about it and make a more educated decision on it.
Hey, Val, you wouldn't happen to have the date of that council meeting in front of you, would you?
The upcoming one?
Two
Two
weeks
meetings
after
from
that.
now?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on.
The 25th of May?
May 25th is Memorial
Nothing else happening.
Yeah, exactly. Just 2 days left on our sentence, or a day left. Okay, so why don't you table till the first council meeting in June,
First council meeting in June.
if that's acceptable to you? I
It's
don't- I don't wanna
acceptable
be-
to me, yes.
Okay.
Anderson, second.
Anderson seconds that. Any further discussion? Yes, Gerald.
Where can we get a full copy of it?
Of the ordinances?
Yeah.
One, they're online, on our webpage, our city webpage.
Okay.
You can go to ordinances and look them up. Otherwise, I've got a green binder in my office, and I don't know that council members have ever had that binder, if it's just available to them if you come in and look at them, but online, it's pretty easy to find.
There were several of those numbers I couldn't find in the codified ordinances.
That was, whoever the author of that resolution was, that is what they put in that resolution.
Okay? Yeah.
We can look for those.
Yeah, we can look for them. And once again, familiarize yourself with them. If you want to, you can look back in the meeting minutes to when that was abolished, and you can see the discussion, because Val does a good job of typing up the discussion points and what people had to point out for the record on those issues and items. I know this was brought up a couple times even after that, if you want to look at those meetings, when that was. All right, there's a motion and a second. Did I already do this? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes have it, carries. It'll be tabled till the first meeting in June of the Common Council. Introduction to new business, discussion of a new ordinance allowing issuance of operator license upon approval of the police department, and then in parentheses, Val Foley also, because she does do a lot of the paperwork with it. This is something that's come out of, was it out of the League of Municipalities, Val, or?
Yes, it came out of the legislature, I believe, and correct me, Steve, if I'm wrong. But
Yes. If I may, Mr. Mayor,
You can?
I presume this is
Don't turn it on.
not on yet? This is pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 125.17, Parent 1, closed parent, which was recently amended by the Wisconsin State Legislature,
A little bit closer to your mouth. Thank you.
which was amended by the Wisconsin State Legislature to allow for a city official to be named by a municipality. The amendment was part of Act 59 of the Wisconsin 2019 legislature, and what the law now provides is that the council can, by vote of the council, nominate or recommend a municipal official to issue operator's license. So anybody it could be the mayor, it could be the city clerk, it could be the city treasurer, any city official could be nominated, but under the statute, this is to facilitate moving these along rather than everybody sitting around and waiting till the next council meeting. But it does still require that you meet the qualifications, which means it still has to go through an evaluation by the law enforcement agency for approval. I want you all to remember, too, that even if the clerk would deny the person a license, they do have a right to appeal to the Common Council, so that right is still there, and that's not being taken away by this motion. This just facilitates the person that makes it through the the police department's review, looks to be no problem, and then the clerk can sign off on that. But if the clerk would not sign off, or the sheriff or police department would say they believe this person is not a good candidate, that person can still appeal to you as the Common Council, and we've had that happen. Does that answer your questions?
Correct. once again, this is listed under introduction of new business, but we do have a rule that a motion can be on anything that's here. So if it's something that we wanted to move along with and be expedite, we can make a motion to have our city attorney draw up that ordinance for the next council meeting, if you so please. If not, we can just wait until it comes up next time to.
And just on that point, remember that we read an ordinance at one council meeting, and then we vote on it the next. So it'd be read at the May meeting, even if you vote on it today, and it would be approved at that June meeting unless you decide to have one on Memorial Day.
Yep, and it would take 2 readings unless larger than 2/3 of the council voted yes. If it was unanimous, that's when it would pass. Tom?
How is this, what's the difference between how it's done now and between this?
It
Val,
always
do you-
used to come to the council, and the council would vote on every single person. It was usually on the consent agenda, and you would have seen the names in advance, and you would have been able to say yes or no to those individual names. And then if the council would vote no, then the person theoretically has an appeal, but then it's kind of always awkward because they're appealing to a council that's already voted on them. That's why the biggest reason this law has been put in place.
The other thing it did hold up as far as expediting is when somebody was looking for employment or anything else, and if they needed a license, they took the online class, they brought in the portion to Val. Val and Lloyd had an opportunity to give them a provisional license for another 60 days, which would allow us to do it. This just allows her to take care of it before it gets to that point.
So either way, Police Chief Lloyd would have to okay it anyway.
Absolutely.
So I see this just as really getting rid of the middleman, honestly, right?
Yes.
So I will make a motion to have our city attorney draw up the papers to address introduction of new business line 28.
Daniel, second.
There's a motion and a second. Further discussion. A little bit closer to your mic. Yeah,
Daniel, second.
thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Val, make sure you got that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Next, discuss, approve, allowing department supervisor participation at city council meetings via Zoom. Real quick, heads up on this one. One is, there is Wisconsin Supreme Court ruling on moving Wisconsin forward that will take place tomorrow as far as how long we're shut down and everything else as far as that goes. Yet at the same time, even for future cases, this would help us for department heads to be able to dialogue with us. Right now, I think I've done a less than justified job of explaining what we do here at City Business from our departments. Granted, they write up a report and everything else, but as you can see when they speak, when Jim Gossage got up and spoke and when Mark spoke, there's more to it. So allowing them via Zoom be able to do this, and there's some identified issues with this. Well, how many cameras have mics or their laptops or their computers in their office have mics and cameras and all that business. But at the same time, it can be done with a smartphone, and if nothing else in the time being and or for necessity, it allows us to receive some more dialogue from them when it comes to these issues. I know Finance Director Wendy sent out some information on our wage scale, the appropriate adjustments that were coming and so forth during the week that then we passed on to Jim Gossage, but that information would have been good previous to that, or whatever the case might be. So this offers that up. So anyway, discussion.
I would make a motion to approve allowing department supervisors to participate via Zoom.
Mikulowski, second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Gerald?
What this brings up for me is that we haven't come back to the discussion about council members participating remotely, and that's, maybe I should have brought that up under unfinished business, but
Yeah, that's not the item that's on the agenda, but we
I
can bring that up. The difference here is, one, department heads don't vote. They're here for informational basis only. Number two, we represent the people, therefore we are obligated via open meetings laws. And with Zoom, they would also be there, so the information we collect together is the same information. So there's no issue of disclosure by our department heads that we pay them to give us the information we ask for. So that's a little bit different as far as explaining some of the difference. But any other discussion?
Yeah, I was just going to say, usually they don't follow us into closed session meetings, which I know has been brought up as an issue for some. And at one of the last meetings that we had where obviously they weren't here, some of the stuff that we had approved did not get passed along as timely as maybe it could have if they were watching the meeting via Zoom. So just the follow-up for the next couple of days after the meeting, they would be up to speed because they would be watching the meeting.
And even some of that's, we'll call it a slight in my communication. When I excuse them from the meeting, it's from the room, but not from the information. So then that catch-up period is when is that information and when can it be brought forward? They're one, being sensitive to their work product of getting done. We can have as many requests as we want. That doesn't mean squat if they have a job to do as far as getting a Stevens Street project done. If there's a water main break, they're not going to worry about answering our questions at that point, but whatever. So when they were excused from this meeting, I think they believed that they were excused, and I think a good majority of them have watched the live stream and or whatever. They were interested in what we were doing. Like Wendy, that's how she knew she had other information she could have gave us. So that's what that allows to happen. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Discussion of the existing common council practices and procedures as adopted by the common council in previous term of the council. Actually, I'm going to hand this off to David. It was a discussion we had, and once again, this is the agenda item that goes back to the ethics board, and why are they set up or not set up yet? It's a building process, but this is the first part of that building process was that policy and procedure manual, and now us going through it.
All right, thank you. This is starting on page 37 of the packet. It was emailed out by Daniel Gild a few days ago as well. And Chris, the mayor, had asked me to take some time during each council meeting, and you can correct me if I'm mischaracterizing this, to go over a part of this. And today, I wanted simply to start with really the first few pages, so page 38 through 40, with one caveat that I want to mention on page 41. And so I'd encourage you to read this. I'm not going to read it word for word in this meeting. I apologize if you were disappointed to not hear my voice more than absolutely necessary, Eileen. I have a few, what I wanted to do was start with a general overview of why, like why are we doing this? And then a few highlights from the first few pages that I think are important given the experience that I observed over the past 2 years of being on this council, and some of the high points that are important that I think have come up. So quite right, we now have an ethics board. We will soon have a populated citizens ethics board, correct?
Correct.
City bylaws. Now, prior to that, the council governed itself. So if there was an ethical complaint, it went to the council to decide whether or not it wanted to govern itself or hold itself accountable. for that. In discussions with former council members that have been here a long time, I believe there was only one that ever made it onto an agenda, and it was rescinded in that meeting. So this is a matter of making the council itself and its behavior accountable to an outside entity. So our behavior, our actions inside this chamber and our actions outside, which I'm going to get to a few caveats about this, will be held to a standard that somebody else is looking at. And I think that is a very good thing. I think, I honestly, I think I would have a few fewer gray hairs over the past 2 years if we had had this in place 2 years ago. So the main thing that I want to address here, the first one, is what it means to be a city council member. And I highlighted this. If you would like me to email out my highlighted copy of this, I can, and moving forward I can continue, but I didn't want to print it out on my black and white printer. So I have it on my phone, so forgive me. So this would be page 2, which is page 38 in the packet. The third paragraph halfway through, the council also recognizes that unless delegated to other committees, bodies, or individual alderpersons, the power to act on behalf of the city rests with the entire common council or a required majority of the council. The authority vested in the council is within Wisconsin statute section 62.11, parent 5. And then I only highlighted, if you drop down a couple more, to the phrase management and control as used in Wisconsin statute 62.11, parent 5, above, refers to its general role as the governing body of the city rather than to any daily management or supervision of city affairs. So the main point there that I want to make is that outside of convening a meeting where we have quorum, we are private citizens. We have no authority to walk around the town and tell people, do you know who I am? Which is something that I have heard several people complain about over the years. Nobody's sitting around this table, to be sure. And so we don't have any, we are private citizens, we are residents and taxpayers outside of convening it. And the only power the council has is to vote on resolutions, to make motions that direct city staff to do work, and then we let them do that work. We don't micromanage them as they're doing that. Our role here is as an oversight. We are the board. If there is a problem that arises, certainly we take input from our constituents, we make observations, but we bring it to this body. Later on, there's language that I'm going to get to in a future meeting, maybe, to the effect of when it's appropriate for a council member to even comment on the performance of a city employee, in what context they do, and in what context it's not appropriate for them to, say, for example, talking to the media outside of a meeting. So that's the first step in that I think it's particularly important. The next is, and this is, forgive me, a slightly awkward thing, but I cleared it with Ryan, our city council president. In our ordinance, the city council president position is mentioned once. The role of the city council president is to take over in the absence of the mayor if the mayor is incapacitated, not able to be here, and also in an extreme case of being incapacitated, which hasn't happened in the last 2 years and hopefully will not happen in the next two, can take over as mayor pro tem. Mayor pro tem means acting mayor for a short period of time in that situation, which by definition would be an emergency situation. So outside of that, there are other towns and villages where the city council president has codified in ordinance more authorities, different authorities. In Rhinelander, whomever that is moving forward, it is a member of the council with no more authority or power outside of that very specific thing. However, and this is something I've observed over the last 2 years, and so it's very important to me, it is a leadership role. When people outside of the community read in the newspaper, city council president so-and-so says, ... They infer a lot more. It's perceived authority. It's perceived power. And so that carries weight, and that position is a leadership position. In asking various people with city government experience within Rhinelander and outside of Rhinelander over the last 6 months or so, what exactly does this role mean? Because it's very limited in the ordinance. They say, well, there's also standard operating procedures. There's best practices. And best practices are that the position is a leadership position. In an ideal situation, the city council president would be the one to hold the rest of the city council accountable for their behavior, for bad behavior. And so it is a leadership position in that sense. I'm not meaning to step on any toes here, but it's a component that I think is important to understand. Beyond just the city council president position, the alderman or alderperson position, Steve Sauer, on many occasions in the last 6 months, had spoken to this in public comment. Perceived power. Perceived power and authority, when unchecked, becomes actual power and authority because people assume it. That means we have a responsibility not to exercise powers we don't actually have. And I think that's a very important thing. And that's, rather than just read line for line with regard to this document, that's the standard I hold myself to. That's the standard I try to hold other people to as well. And sitting around this room, or sitting around this set of tables, I don't know that this will even be a problem. It seems like almost like it might be a moot point moving forward, but it certainly wasn't a moot point for the last 2 years in my experience. So the other thing that I wanted simply to add here is on page 41. Actually, there are 2 more things. I'll do this, and then I will backtrack just slightly with one more point that I want to make for today. On page 41, item 2.1.3, refraining from interfering with the day-to-day administration of city business, which is the responsibility of the city administrator. Moving up one more, 2.1.2, all council members will respect the separation between the council's role and the city administrator's role. Yes, it's directly mentioning the city administrator position. I want to make that point clear because the policy doesn't change when people in the role change. We need to move, I think, in this city past looking at the individual holding the position and looking at the status of the position itself. And so when my seat is vacated, the person who will succeed me, it's the position that defines their parameters and authority, not the individual in that position. I have received accounts, multiple accounts, of former council members pulling city staff out of department meetings to give them individual directives. We do not have the authority to do that. That is far outside the bounds of appropriate behavior on multiple levels within our bylaws, within our code of ethics, and within the bounds of professional behavior, all three, right? And so moving forward, when I was elected, I didn't really have an agenda. I just was naively thinking that I would just participate in the local community. I very quickly developed an agenda to professionalize the behavior of the council and city government, to leave it in a place where the policies and the positions' roles dictate how business is conducted, not the individual personalities of the people sitting in the chairs. That's my hope moving forward. I think we've moved in a very significantly very good direction that way. The last thing that I wanted to point to is behavioral. It's on page 39 in the packet. I highlighted second paragraph, middle of the second paragraph, also the beginning of the fourth paragraph, the last paragraph on the page rather. The council encourages alderpersons to follow the appropriate avenues for making inquiries of city staff and investigating city issues through the committee structure and department heads. The last paragraph, given these considerations, it shall be the policy of this council that in the course of their duties as elected officials, individual alderpersons generally should attempt to seek information and assistance from city staff through contact with either the appropriate department head, the city administrator, or the mayor. Other language in this document does state that none of these preclude asking questions of department staff in meetings. It's not against the rules. In some cases, it's a very good thing. I'm not raising this as a matter of what is allowed and not allowed. What I would hope is that the standard of professionalism in this chamber rises above simply what is permitted by ordinance to be what is prudent given proper professional discretion. I think a substantial amount of meeting time in the last 2 years was taken up asking questions of staff that could have easily been answered by a phone call, an email. I have seen city staff being put on the spot in front of a full room with a full gallery audience, clearly rattled, clearly nervous, essentially being cross-examined. And I don't think that's appropriate behavior. I don't think that's respectful of the time of our citizens who are watching this, the time of the rest of us, our department heads who are here, who are on salary and are here. I mean, not this particular meeting, but in normal setting would be here. They're on salary. As you all know, We have had a staying policy for almost a year of having 2 law enforcement officers on duty the entire meeting. And that's not very respectful to them when meetings last well on into the night. And so moving forward with an ethics board, with our bylaws, with a clean slate, the new council, I want to be part of changing a culture and improving a culture of professionalism, and I am sure that the people around this table looking at me right now also do. So I feel like this is redundant to say, but at the same time, I was invited and asked to say it.
Good.
So this is a discussion, we can have
Yeah.
an open discussion.
This is a discussion, as he's pointed out, one of the things that I really wanted to see happen since I became mayor is we work in a body of government that has 3 equal parts as far as duties, responsibilities, and understanding them. And government works, and it works well when people understand those roles and they work within those roles. We work like a tripod. Our city chose a tripod where we have an administrator, a executive officer, mayor, and a legislative branch, the council. And what I want you to be is empowered in your role, but to understand your role. That being the case, this is a body of information that'll govern us, right here that we looked at. It's been misconstrued in the past and/or, I don't know how long, and probably even by myself, how that works. Even when I'm functioning somewhat as an administrator in that time, it's a strange process. It held me up the first 6 months or so, trying to figure out, okay, is this as the mayor, is this as the administrator? Because they're different roles. So what I want to do is build 3 strong bodies that can argue, they can discuss, they can get upset, but they represent their body the way they should, even if it's in disagreement, to be able to move us forward. So I asked David to go through this packet for a couple reasons, and one of the reasons I'd point out is on page 40, is that this can be amended also to council rules. So even as we go forward looking at this, and by the next meeting, you'll know we'll probably take the next 5 pages, you read them closely and you're like, I like that, I don't like that. So during this discussion, we can bring it forward because we can, with resolution, change it. It's a document to govern us, by us, and we're allowed to amend it, which is a good thing. Not necessarily for an individual reason, and trust me, that conversation will happen, but as we see our role, the reason we pick 8 people to represent us is you get different points of view, and you have different constituents, and you have different, different life experiences. You're gonna bring something to the table, embrace that, so that we now can have the discussion. If we find some part that we're all like, yeah, I'm not sure if that's good, we can turn around and say, hey, how about for future business, we have a resolution that rewords it this way, or makes it more applicable to this part. The beauty is the people that come after you are gonna have the same capability to amend it. The people after you will be able to amend it. The one thing that we can't be afraid of is change. It's the one consistent in life. So the more we embrace it and actually take an open perspective where that change happens in front of the people with a gallery, with a discussion, the better off we're gonna be. So that was part of my purpose is we have this document. It's a great start. It's an amazing start. Steve, who's in the back, has done a lot of ethics boards and ethics reviews. As far before that, has taught that class in Ripon College. So we have a good experience as far as legally, what does that mean? Let's use that when we have it in front of us to put a piece of document in front of us that really puts us in a position to succeed. That was my hopes in this, and then this discussion. So, as that stated, your thoughts on those first 3-4 pages. Gerald.
Well, I had a question on the last one, Dave. The reference to city employees being cross-examined, interrogated, what have you, at a meeting of the Common Council, it seems to me that part of that is necessitated because the committees have been eliminated. That the kind of questioning that may need to be done could be done at a lower and less public level if we had committees? So I'm just raising the question.
Yep, no, it's a good question. What I would state is how that question's asked, or nor how information that way comes about. On this document, it'll state if you have a question of a person, you include the administrator and the mayor in that conversation in the email, and you'll get your answer back. It's not to make our department heads, once again, even in the Zoom, that they jump to us to answer those questions, but at the same time available to us. I by no way, shape, or form believe that I can be the most effective mayor without your help, and without your help, to come and point out some of the things that may have fallen short. It's a part-time position. Therefore, that's there. The committees, as far as that went, and when they were abolished and taken back, was to take a new direction and bringing information forward faster than going through committees, because we were having one meeting a month, a common council meeting, 24 to 30 items on it, and we now have about 60 on it twice a month. So how in the world do we catch up in some of that time and space and still remain functionally capacitated? One, you really embrace your department heads and your administrator to do the job they're supposed to do, and then you hold them accountable for that. That's our job. And then if there's parts of that we do or don't like, we bring forth resolutions to change it, to amend it. That answer your question at all?
Not totally, but, it's
Can I clarify?
one
a little?
approach.
Yes. Well, I'm going to go here first, and then I'll go to you.
Okay, unless Dave answers.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you that asking questions is very good also because it's asking in front of a public that might have questions, the same question, right? And in their mind, but they don't have the opportunity to. I'm not saying don't ask questions. I'm saying discretion with asking absurd questions or nitpicking questions, or what I observed in many cases was a pattern of behavior that was targeted, oftentimes towards a specific staff member, where every single meeting it would be a set of obscure and random detailed nitpicks. And that is what I'm asking for discretion to not do. I absolutely agree with you that we should have them, and we should have department heads here to answer questions. We should ask them relevant questions, especially for the sake of the public, to clarify things, to clarify budget discrepancies, for example, with change orders and such. I have gotten very rich information from people asking such questions. It's simply a matter of discretion. I did want to comment, even though it's slightly off topic, with regard to the committee, with regard to committees, why they were abolished, and then why we very specifically chose as a council last December to put it on the first agenda of the new council was, and this was part of our discussion when we did that, was that you should have input into it, but they were abolished, not suspended. So if we were going to reestablish committees, a committee structure, that would be an open discussion about how would they work? What problems would they be solving if we did that? Would it be worth the additional expense? Would it be worth the additional time to department heads to go to in some cases, three different committee meetings and then come to a council meeting, right? I think that's a reasonable one. I certainly don't want to leave you or any of the other members around the table with the impression that I'm closed to that discussion. I think that we're all open to that discussion. Times change. We might want to try something new. I understand.
Eileen.
I just wanted to make one point as well, that all of the committee meetings were also open meetings. They were public as well. But I, as a citizen, as a private citizen over the last year, I really have appreciated seeing more of the discussions that would normally have happened in committee meetings that I wasn't able to attend. The committee meetings, going back and looking through agendas and minutes, sometimes they were it was a 10-minute meeting. There was no minutes provided. You don't know what was happening at them. You don't know what was resolved, what was discussed. So I really do appreciate these items now coming to the full council so that we can see all of the different issues that are being brought up and discussed.
I can tell you, just even for staff, as far as that goes, another reason meeting minutes aren't coming out as quick is because we're doing twice as much here and less in committee meetings. It's not we're not doing the work, it's just now done by the full council. Instead of having 2 or 3 of the alderpersons in a council meeting making a decision that then would come or not come before council, we now see those issues come before council, which, yeah, it's put a whole lot more meeting minutes and a whole lot more work on Val, but it's taken it off of some of the other secretaries that were there. Excuse me, not secretaries. As Val's is the clerk. I apologize. I know, I apologize. Sorry. But it's condensed where it is. And those meetings, our meetings obviously got longer. Last year, there were meetings that took into midnight, pretty close. That being the case, we still handled the business just the same and out in front of the people. And once again, we put it right away to that whether or not we'd bring committees back so that it can be voiced. We'd like to give you some time to think about it. I mean, it's kind of, there wasn't a good way to say, well, 4 months into their term, we're going to bring it back in front of them. It's once again amendable. It's a part of that amendable process. But, Ryan.
Yeah, and I'm not closed off to any other ideas too, Gerald. But I was talking to Attorney Sorensen, and, he's seen some different municipalities in the way. He's coming out here now that I said his name. He's seen different things being done in different places, and something that we could be open to is potentially, not that we have to do this all the time, but typically on maybe the first meeting of the month, do discussion only. So we discuss things, then we have a chance to think about it for a couple of weeks. Staff can prepare stuff too, and then at the second council meeting of the month is where we would typically do our voting on stuff, which would still give everybody the opportunity to hear from their constituents, think about things, research it on their own, and then vote at the next meeting if that's what we want to do, or push it to meetings past that.
The portion I can promise you is as the CEO, getting the information out earlier and clearer to as many people as possible is something I believe in. And it is a struggle because it's a lot. Like I said, it's 60-some items. They come up at the last minute. They're saying that need to happen. So that grace and mercy is needed, but at the same time being transparent with that information with our packets so people can see, and having those files online that they can look at all portions of it. That gives our citizens an empowered position to reach out to their representatives to control the direction that our city goes. It really empowers them, and that's the idea behind it more than anything. Did Steve Sorensen want to weigh in on this?
No, I agree wholeheartedly that there's many different ways to run a council meeting. The old traditional way was the committee structure. The committee structure was predicated on the concept that people couldn't communicate. And basically you came to town with your horse and buggy and you did your work. And well, this is the 21st century and we've got a lot more communication. So the concept has really evolved in municipal government that the better way of doing it is to constantly feed information to the entire council so the entire council can be fed all the time. And then when you come together, you should come together at a meeting that you're well prepared. I mean, I will tell you the thing that will be disingenuous is if you don't read your packets and you don't look at those monthly reports and you don't look at that information, Because then you'll come to a council meeting and you just vote in a, just not to be embarrassed, so you just vote aye on everything, or whatever you vote with your friend, whoever they, and that's when committee, where councils, I've watched, I can't begin to tell you how many city council meetings I've been to in my life and how many different ways they've done it, but you can always tell the council person that comes prepared. And if you all come to the meeting prepared, and you're not just the public works person, you're not just the human resources person, you're not just the parks person, you're not just if you all come prepared, then you have a much better council that represents the entire community. It's when you start getting into these little silos, we call them, and you become the human resources silo, and I become the finance silo, and you become the, streets and roads silo. I mean, I can remember my days on the county board when the person next to me only was on the county board to be on the roads or the highway committee. I mean, because they got the biggest reimbursement check. And that's all he cared about. And they did. They went around and drove every road in the county, and that was a good place for him. But the rest of us that really took it seriously went to all the meetings and learned all the stuff. Well, can you imagine what it's like to go to like 8 or 12 different committee meetings? But if you go to one council meeting with all that information, you are a much better council person. And in the 21st century, with computers and the way we can share information, it really is better. I didn't plan on giving a speech, I'm sorry.
So once again, when it comes down to it, our job in empowering us is that policy and resolution moving forward and really being careful with that. I know Ryan talked about the one being informational, the next meeting. I like the free flowing because issues come up that you want to take care of right away. And so therefore, my point being though is I'll always accept a motion to table something for 2 weeks so you can research it more. There's nothing wrong with that unless it's in dire need, which then I will stress that. That being the case, it allows us to have the discussion and that facilitate through, okay, what does that mean? And not be afraid to ask those questions. With the power that we have, excuse me, I'm reverberating or whatever a little bit too much. Anyway, with the power that we have as a council to direct those things, understanding that role so it can really effectively be used. Once again, I promise you that we'll try to get information out in a timely manner. Once again, the stuff you want before that, you can request and we can see if we can make it happen, But grace and mercy and understanding we can do it again 2 weeks later is what we really need to know. Any other discussion? Tom, I know you had your hand up earlier, and I know you have some historical reference for it. Okay.
I have nothing to say.
All right, Tom?
I know that you were just talking about the ethics board, and I'm 100% for that. I think that some oversight, overwatch to make sure everyone's behaving is a really good thing. My only question would be, would there be some sort of vetting process to make sure that we're not having biased people on an ethics board?
You get to say yay or nay when I appoint them. So
Okay.
That's your vetting. They'll come before you. One of the reasons this has taken a while too is it's been taxing on me to find people that aren't political,
Right.
that aren't invested but are invested, and that understand their job is just to decide whether or not the action was ethical.
Right.
Not legal, not to their liking, not anything else. Is it ethical? That's what the ethics board is to do. Yep, Tom.
We'll be able to interview them?
Actually, not interview them, but I'll bring them forth, and then you'll say yay or nay, and then I'll go back and get new ones if I have to.
Okay.
And just so you know, if you want the interview process, and part of what I did is I've asked Steve just for suggestion on questions, directions of that, because he set them up in the past. I don't want to assume that I knew what it would be to pick one. I mean, this would be the first one that I even select that way.
Have you had applicants?
What's that?
Has anybody applied?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. No, we've had a lot of interest. It's been open for 3 months now, and I know that sounds bad. It's just It's been open. Actually, some very, very, very talented people when it comes to some of that decision-making, but now answering the questions face-to-face so that you get a little bit of a feel also, because that's important. Anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right.
That answered me.
Well, that ends our first session of discussing the, the policy and procedures manual, which was a good discussion, and I thank you all for partaking and having good questions. At this point, number 31 on our agenda is closed session. If necessary, to convene into closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C, 19.851F, and 19.851G to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee of which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, consider financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data at specific persons, preliminary consideration, of a specific personnel problems or investigation and charges against specific persons of which, if discussed in public, would likely have substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations, and confer with legal counsel for the governmental body for which is rendering oral or written advice concerning the strategies to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or likely to become involved. A, discuss and evaluate the performance of the city administrator Daniel Gill during his administrative leave and consider the conditions under his contract and any actions that can be taken or should be taken as permitted under contract and applicable laws of the state of Wisconsin or ordinance of the city of Rhinelander in conformity with the laws of the United States, its constitution, and the constitution of the state of Wisconsin. B, discuss the legal counsel negotiation status, possible action regarding completion of negotiations with WPPEA Local 38 on collective bargaining agreement. C, update from legal counsel on the pending federal court action in regards to Kingman versus the city of Rhinelander and the appeal status of the Oneida County case number 2019 CV 000172, state of Wisconsin. Heather Holmes versus the city of Rhinelander, city council et al. D, consultation with legal counsel regarding employee matters regarding potential litigation. Thank you.
I will make a motion to go into closed session for the above stated reasons.
Are you not going to repeat it?
Second, Larson.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Or is this?
Aye.
Aye.
Val, do we call roll on that? Yes. We call roll on that, sorry.
Okay.
Come back. Val, call roll.
Mikulowski,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Rossing,
Aye.
Kelly, Barnett,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Abstain.
Holt.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Guys, have it. Closed session in 5 minutes. I'm going to take a quick break. Turn your mics off.